All right, welcome back. Today, we are diving into a theory that might just flip how you think about global politics on its head. It's called constructivism, and it poses this really fascinating question. What if the world isn't really built on power, but on ideas?
We're so used to thinking about international relations in terms of, well, concrete stuff, right? Who's got the bigger army, the stronger economy, the most resources? But what if that's only half the story? What if the things that really drive how nations relate to each other are the things we can't actually see or touch?
So this really breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you've got the traditional way of seeing things, what we call realism. That's all about material power, the hard stuff like guns, money, territory. But on the other side, it's the world of ideas and beliefs, things like trust, friendship, even rivalry. And that's the world we're going to explore today, kind of like the hidden architecture of global politics.
All right, let's get into the main event. We're talking about a theory that really puts these ideas front and center. It's a total game changer. And that theory is called constructivism. Okay, so the core idea is this. The world as we know it isn't some fixed, unchanging thing that just exists. Instead, it's socially constructed. That means our relationships, our rules, even our conflicts, they're all built by us, through our thoughts, our interactions, and our shared beliefs. We are literally creating the world we live in, together.
This quote from Alexander Wendt, this is pretty much the heart of constructivism right here. Now, anarchy in international relations doesn't mean total chaos with burning cars and stuff. It just means there's no world government, no single boss calling all the shots. So the traditional view says, okay, no boss means everyone's out for themselves. It's a constant power struggle. But Wendt comes along and says, whoa, hold on a second. It's only a power struggle if we decide it is. If countries act like friends, then the world is a friendly place. If they act like rivals, well, it becomes a dangerous one. See? Anarchy is what we make of it. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does this socially constructed world actually work? I mean, it's not just magic, right? Well, let's break it down into 3 core principles that really make this whole theory tick.
Okay, first up, shared ideas and norms. Think of these as the unwritten rules of the game. They shape how countries behave. Second, identities are a huge deal. Is another country a friend, an enemy, a rival? That identity is going to dictate your actions way more than just a simple calculation of power. And third, and this is super important, this reality we're talking about is built through interaction. It doesn't just exist in one country's head. It exists in the shared understanding between nations. Every treaty, every conflict, every single conversation, it all works to reinforce and build this shared reality.
All right, so that's the theory. But let's move from the abstract to the real world. Where can we actually see these ideas and identities in action? Because this is where constructivism really comes alive.
So think about this for a second. Why do we have these massive fences and border patrols between some countries, but with others, the border is, well, it's practically invisible? What's the deal with that? A constructivist would tell you it has everything to do with identity.
And this slide is a perfect example. I mean, just look at the US and Canada. They share the world's longest undefended border. That didn't just happen by accident. It was built, constructed over 200 years of shared values, economic ties, and just a history of acting like allies. Their identity as friends is a real social fact, and it's way more powerful than any wall. Now contrast that with India and Pakistan. Their rivalry isn't just about land. It's a social reality built on the trauma of the 1947 partition, decades of conflict, and totally different national stories. Their identity as rivals drives everything they do, creating this constant cycle of mistrust. And hey, it's not just about one-on-one relationships between countries. We've also built these powerful global norms. These are basically ideas that have become so widely accepted, they pretty much act like rules. Think about the massive taboo against using chemical weapons. That idea is so strong it shapes what countries do, even when it might seem like a military advantage. The same thing applies to the expectation that we provide humanitarian aid, or this growing idea that climate change is a responsibility for all of us. Okay, so we've seen what constructivism is and we've seen how it works, but so what? Why does this theory actually matter? What's its biggest contribution to how we understand the world today?
Well, here it is. Constructivism's superpower is explaining change. You see, theories that only look at material power tend to see the world as kind of stuck, a constant struggle for dominance that never really changes. But constructivism, it shows us how huge world-altering transformations can happen when our ideas and beliefs shift. Just think about the end of the Cold War. That wasn't just about a change in military power. It was a massive, fundamental shift in ideas about how the world should work. And this timeline of human rights is a fantastic case study. Just look at this. Back in 1948, it was really just an idea, something written down in a declaration. But then, over decades of people pushing for it, through diplomacy and social pressure, it became a real, shared global expectation. It started to influence how countries talk to each other. Then it led to things like international courts for war crimes. And today, it's a central principle that shapes how nations behave and how we judge them. An idea became a powerful global force. Now, of course, no theory is perfect, right? Constructivism gets a lot of praise for explaining change and for putting a human focus back into the picture. But critics have a point when they say that ideas can be really, really hard to measure. And yeah, sometimes the theory might downplay the very real, very raw power of a big army or a strong economy. So it's an absolutely vital perspective, for sure, but it's still one piece of a much larger puzzle.
So at the end of the day, this is really the key takeaway. The world stage isn't just about who has the most tanks or the biggest bank account. It's a social space. And it's governed by the shared meanings, the identities, and the relationships that all of us as human societies build together.
And that leaves us with one last pretty powerful question. If our world really is shaped by the beliefs we all share, then what's the next big idea that's going to shape our future? Could it be a shared commitment to tackling climate change? Maybe a new way of thinking about global citizenship? The most important thing to remember is that the future isn't set in stone. It's out there, waiting to be constructed. The only real question is, what are we going to build?